Hey everybody, Tyree here with Before I Forget, along with the greatest, along with Kevin. Say hey, Kevin.
Hey folks, Tyree is here. Plugs. I'm here, and we have a very special guest today, and her name is Sidney Jaques. Sidney, tell us about yourself, please.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you for having me. My name is Sidney Jaques. I'm a major in the Army. I'm active duty. I've only been active duty. I commissioned in 2012 through ROTC from the University of Scranton, where I did ROTC and played basketball for 4 years. I commissioned, got my branch of choice, which was AG. I did airborne school after my second year of college, so then that landed me at Fort Bragg. Before college, just the youngest of four, all athletes. Two of my siblings are college coaches. I played basketball since I could walk. Grew up in New Jersey, born and raised. And so basketball is really what got me into ROTC and the Army. And then I commissioned. I went to Fort Bragg, where I was a postal platoon leader for almost 2 years, deployed with them. Took my platoon to 4 different countries all at once for my first deployment, came back. Found out that I was the Battalion S1. My new job was to be the Battalion S1 for 2nd Battalion, 325th Airborne Infantry Regiment. It's a battalion in 2PCC in the 82nd. And found out on my first day I was the first female assigned. Not necessarily from a support from the BSB, but actually assigned to the unit's MTO for any of the 3 infantry battalions in that brigade. So I found that out the first day. Absolutely amazing 2 years with them. There was a number of challenges with integration, but nothing that we didn't work through. I had an absolutely amazing leadership, made amazing brothers, amazing friends, deployed with them to Erbil and Mosul in 2017. I had to redeploy early to go to the Captain's Career Course. And then when I was there, I decided to put a packet in to go to RAS-2 for the 75th Ranger Regiment. And it wasn't out of the blue. There was already communication with them. They needed an AG officer, and they were ready with integration. And I had proven myself in the last battalion. So I went to RAS-2 out of the Captain's Career Course, graduated PCS to Fort Benning, and then 3 years later I went to Ranger School. Had a extended stay there, and then served as the regimental S1, so the primary staff officer for the S1 for 2.5 years, a couple more deployments there. Then I did a training with industry assignment for a year in Orlando, Florida, where I learned a bunch of software, and that's why I'm here in DC now, designing the next release of IPSA. We're integrating talent management and pay into the future Army software.
Oh, I have questions for you then. Jeez. I'm still in the reserves, and IPSA has, I have a soldier who was mad about his pay. He finally got paid, but IPSA definitely held it up pretty bad.
Yeah.
But what is IPSA for us that don't know? What is IPSA?
Yeah.
What, Tyree?
What is IPSA for folks who don't know?
So it stands for the Integrated Personnel Pay System Army, and it's merging all 3 components. So it's been active with the National Guard for a while now. Mm-hmm. And it's merging National Guard, active reserve into taking all of the 30 plus different databases coded in really old code across all different databases and merging it into one centralized location where all of your HR is done in one location. It's the most complex thing I have ever had to wrap my head around, how we have done that. it's the largest HR database in the world. And especially once we bring pay into it, it's going to be the largest HR pay database. It's 1.1 million people. So there's going to be complications. There's going to be things that have to get ironed out. It's huge. But it's really the future of streamlining your HR. So you don't have to update it one spot, then the other, then the other. It's doing away with the 4187 is the goal of it. Doing away with your leave forms and getting to a point where we don't need to submit forms anymore.
Thank you
so it's pretty cool.
so much. Thank you so much for working on that, because man, I was in for a time and that was a massive headache for me. Anytime the paperwork for anything came up, I'd much rather just not and deal with the consequences later, because I'm lazy, than deal with all that. So thank you. And thank you for explaining that, because the listeners, sometimes they don't know.
It's pretty cool.
Us.
Or us, yeah,
I didn't even know that IPSA was going to do all of that stuff. I just thought, my understanding of it was it was going all the way back to like what AKO was, but instead of having hyperlinks to all these different websites, it's all just right there.
There's gonna be hyperlinks here and there until we get certain things interfaced or subsumed along the way. But it's the things that there's software and systems that it's hard to find somebody that can even rewrite that code to fix something that's wrong. It's that outdated. So working with just brilliant people, super out of the box, innovative thinkers. And my favorite part is being involved with the talent management side. I grew up as an AG officer where you could get things done under the table. And then also being the RS1 for 75th, like, we don't rely on HRC for manning. They don't, it's not we, but they don't rely on HRC. So, and the talent management is very autonomous to them. So having that experience, learning from people that have grown up there and just having a lot of fun with it. Like, if I wasn't in the Army, I'd be coaching basketball. So, that experience and that perspective of to build the right team. How do you identify the player that you want to recruit? How do you know who you need on the team? Not just based off of, their size or their skills. It's like what their talents are, personalities, how they mesh, what they're interested in, what they want to do with their life. So it's really taking my life of making sense of the Army through basketball and turning that into talent management, which is kind of what I've done in the Army. So
that reminded me of a story, and I'm totally going to butcher like the who, what, when, where, why, and how. But so it was a U.S. Olympic team, and we were playing Russia back when Russia was like the USSR, I think, like the 80s, maybe the 70s. And the coach that was hired to put together this team, because I guess we didn't have like enough or any professional players that could be a part of this, so he recruited these college players, and they're going to go up against like Russia, right? And they're this like big dominant team, and they've been playing forever. They're all pros. And the guy, I guess when he was looking for the people that were going to play on the team, he was looking for not the best players, but the people that got along, that could play well together. And I was reading that story, I was like, that is really, really neat to like, I mean, you think as a coach or somebody looking for talent at all, in general, you're looking for the best of the best, right? But my understanding of what they did for that, or reading that, what he did is he looked for the people that could perform well together. And that's my understanding of like special operations community in the military. And I just thought that was kind of is that kind of, when you talk about like coaching basketball or like what you're doing now, I mean, is that kind of, does that play a big part in it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole psychology behind teamwork too, and competition. So, and I think it's also what you're interested in. Like, you can take, so that there were some operational strength things that I had to come in and focus on right away when I had that RS1 job. And especially when it comes to recruiting and wanting to find non-infantry people wanting to go there and wanting to go through the selection and wanting to serve there. And I quickly found that, like, the best that we could find in the conventional force don't always want that challenge. Maybe it's because they didn't want the realization that they may not be the best. Or it's, it's extreme selflessness to be in a unit like that. But what I found was, how do we find the people who are interested in it that may not necessarily already have their Ranger tab, but are interested in it and they want it? And there's no database that I can go in and find that. Mm-hmm. There's nowhere I can go in an HR network or software and find interest or knowledge and skills and behaviors that might align to what you need in a personality and in that grit or in that drive. Because again, like you said, just because somebody is the best doesn't make them a good teammate. So it's finding the people that want to work and they want that humility. They want that teamwork. They're interested in it. And you can build off of that. You can mold somebody with that. They're impressionable. So that's kind of what we started focusing on, and we fixed a lot of problems. So
yeah, well, that's really cool. Yeah, I didn't really still being in and knowing that this transition to IPSA is going on and all the headaches that are going on with it. Like I submitted my retirement packet in December. And now it's being held up because of the transition, and I'm super sad about it. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. There's a lot of people. And you know what else? We're also kind of going through that transition right now of like the unit that I'm in, built it, tested it, designed it, and everything. And eventually, that has got to push to the stakeholders. That's got to push to HRC. That's got to push to the people who are now going to take responsibility of it. And so that phase, like that'll get phased out pretty quickly once people get used to it and they learn it. Super optimistic about also like the younger generation getting their hands on it, because I think they're learning it much faster. Mm-hmm. And that's no shade to more senior generations. It's just these younger people that's what they grew up on, is software. Mm-hmm. But we'll get through those bumps in the road once the roles and responsibilities are just integrated. So.
Yeah. So not to change the subject so quickly, but I really want to talk about you being a badass. So it's, man,
that won't be a long conversation.
No, it'll be a very long conversation. I promise you.
Hours.
So, okay. So it's my perspective, my opinion, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's the general consensus, even though there are the haters out there, but they can get fucked. So, and I mean that sincerely, genuinely, from the deepest part of my heart. Like, I can't stand people like that.
Not at all.
So Tyree and I, we were both infantry when we were active duty. And
fucking right.
Back in 01 to 05, and we were stationed in Germany, and I remember, the prospect of going to Ranger School, the prospect of going Special Forces or doing anything outside of that was like it was just far-reaching goal. Like it was just like it was there, you could see it, but like it wasn't truly attainable for us because, for us to go to Ranger School, we had to go to PRC over in Germany. And then even if we completed it, we had to be selected. And then we would go to Georgia and do the school, or however that worked out. Right. Mm-hmm. And they only held PRC, I think, twice while we were there. Mm-hmm. And, so we got to think like, I got there October 01. Tyree showed up. Was it January 02?
Yeah.
Then we went straight to Kosovo for 6.5 months in 02, and then came back. And then 14 months later, we were in Iraq. And so it wasn't a ton of time to go do those things. So we were pretty busy. And then in 03, we were in the field constantly. So it was just kind of a thing.
Well, you were doing your job.
Right.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you weren't going to a school, you were doing your job.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so that was kind of the thing, though. And that's one of my biggest regrets is not ever trying out for it. And I will say, shamefully, I did put my name on the list to go to PRC, the pre-ranger course, and it kicked off the day that I got back from block leave in was it January 4th or 5th of 2003. And I had just come off the plane, just got back to the barracks. Sergeant Zom, he was the guy that was like, leading the whole thing, him and another guy, Sergeant Worth. And he was like, hey man, tonight, I think it was like 2,200. We're knocking on doors and we're going. And I was like, no, I'm not going. I am going to be at the Rock Fabrique downtown doing soldierly things, and completely immature of me. And I regret it every moment. I don't know that I would have been selected because I was a new soldier, and they did select the guys that had been there for a while or been in the Army for a while. I don't think they selected any lower enlisted guys. It was all NCOs that went, but still, it would have been a great experience. And it's one of my biggest regrets is not trying out for Ranger, not trying out for selection. And now I'm 40 and I hurt and I like my sleep and just all these other things. But here you are, you said the 18th woman in the United States Army to get the Ranger tab. And I think that's fucking badass because it is something that I've always wanted to do. And I've never done it. And so when I see, those are celebrities to me. Tyree lives in LA where he gets to see celebrities. I see you guys walking around, people with tabs, Sapper, Ranger, SF, doesn't matter. And I'm just like, oh my God, that person's done some things. You know what I mean?
Like a weirdo, you looking at him.
Yeah, no, I'm that creeper that's just like staring at your uniform like, oh man.
Who is this person?
Yeah.
Look at it.
So it is. So on that. So you said, gosh, I told you I was going to have you say it, but I'm just going to say. So you were the 18th woman in the Army to get the tab, the Ranger tab, and you were the first AG or first woman in regiment.
First woman in the Army to have the scroll and the tab.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, the scroll, and I even had to explain this to people in the Army too. So the Ranger scroll, when you're in a unit, right, you have a unit patch that you wear on your left shoulder. And in the Ranger regiments, they wear a scroll. That's the design of the patch. When you deploy with a unit, you get to wear, if you're there for, 30 days or however it is, you get to wear that patch as a combat patch on your opposite shoulder. And so when we say that Sidney here is tabbed and scrolled, she has a Ranger tab, goes up here. Did you notice, by the way, whenever you got your Ranger tab, that you're like your left shoulder was a little bit heavier?
Dude, everything in my body was like broken, so everything was heavier.
Yeah, I bet. So yeah, Ranger tab and then scrolled on the other side. No, I like to make that joke because we had the guy Sergeant Gill, who when he got back from Ranger school, it seemed like he was always, whenever he would talk to people, he was always had his left shoulder towards you. You know what I mean? Just kind of like,
yeah, there's people like that.
Yeah,
can't knock it, man. It's a hard class, school. It's not something I had no intention of going to that school, period. Because for one, it's cold. For two, I like warm, so cold is bad. I like to eat. Yeah, summer. Then I'm hot. Then I'm burning up and dying that way. No, I can't deal with any of that stuff. I don't want to be that person in the back complaining. So let the tough ones go, and I'll be in the back picking up the stragglers. But my question is, again, it's a badass school. It's not something that's easy for people to get into. A lot of men hate on you, I'm sure, because we just posted information like we're going to have this person on our show, and people were already.
Oh, I'm sure you got a lot.
Just fucking assholes about it. So, what? Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that? Because you got to see it constantly.
I feel bad for them.
I like that.
And I genuinely like. I'm actually like an extremely empathetic person. I almost didn't. So my empathy is very high on the scale for usually what they're looking for, but I think that's what makes me a really good S1. It's because I genuinely care about that person that I'm taking care of, and like I don't think a lot of people won't know this about me, but why I was asked to, like, the conversation came up for me to even go to RAS. I'm a good S1. Like I'm a good AG officer because I care, and I genuinely care about where people are coming from. And when it comes to the hate, or when it comes to the doubters, like that's one of the most fun things is I know with those two units, like, I knew there was a lot of people that didn't want me there. I knew there were a lot of people that didn't care, and I knew there were a lot of people that wanted to keep a distance and see what I was about. But it's the same feeling as going and playing pickup on post on the weekends, where it's a bunch of dudes playing on the court, and I know they don't think I can run with them, but I keep the same tactic where it's okay. Yeah, you'll see me on the court next over with a pretty good shot, like shooting pretty well, dribbling pretty well, watching them play. I'll get picked up on the court. I integrate into the flow of the game. I make a couple plays. I make a couple defensive plays. I get a couple people a really good shot. I make a couple, and it's like, okay, she can run. Like, okay, she can play. And you build that respect. You build that trust. You show that, yeah, like, I'm here to play. I'm here to work, and I can do my job well. And then with those guys, like, once they turn and they realize and they grow and they grow as a human being. Like, everyone's human. Everyone's got their flaws. And I trust myself that if you spend enough time with me, you realize what I'm about. And yeah, like, there's some people that'll never know me, and they'll put hateful things on my posts, or they'll talk about it or whatever. And it makes them feel good to put other people down. Like, first off, I feel bad for you. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to have that perspective on life, because life is pretty cool when you're a good person. And then I also know that, okay, like, if they do get time with me, or they do reach out to me and have a conversation with me where they're trying to check me or challenge me, you're going to know what I'm about. And it's not just me. There's plenty of women that are like me. That's a really long answer, but
no, it's good.
Kind of my perspective on it. And it's like, also, when it came to Ranger School, like, from day one, it was a lot. It was a lot of crap. And again, as an athlete, you turn what you need to into motivation. You know what the bigger picture is. You know that there's people that are going to want to hit you and foul you extra hard, but you just turn that into, like, game time. Like, okay, like, I'm playing this game and you're not going to win.
Got to bring that baller out. That everyone's all talking shit until you cross them up, right? So
yeah, or you take a ball from them, like,
exactly,
and punch them in the face. Hey, I have to pause for a second. I fucked up.
What?
I mean, you're about to. Well, he is.
Who?
You are.
What do you mean?
Recording in progress.
What do you mean?
I wasn't recording the fucking video. But that's okay. Because we have your audio and I can interview. Okay. So it's no worries. Yeah. It's okay. No, I was just so flustered with getting home, but it's recording now.
Okay.
But so and so we'll just pretend it's happening, but we're going to continue anyway. Yeah. And like I said, we have the audio, so it's all good to go. But anyway,
okay.
That is so, and I told Tyree when we made that post on Facebook, and I was reading through the comments, and
Facebook is brutal.
It is, and I like to be a troll to some of these people because they deserve to get their to get shaken up a bit. And there was a couple of guys that were just like, I mean, making comments, and I don't think people on social media realize that, like, your profile is also public, and I can look at you. And so when I hear dudes saying, like, oh, they lowered the standards, that's how women got through, or oh, they gave them a free pass, or this or that, or they didn't have to do certain things in Ranger School to, complete it. I'm looking at,
like, what? Like, what?
When they're saying that to themselves, though, like wheezing and eating Cheetos.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is I looked at a couple of these guys' profile, and they're just these behemoths of people. Like, they're just not in any shape. Like, they would definitely don't pass height and weight and tape in the Army. They're a shape. But it just kind of blows my mind. Like, how can you be that person, but then, like, sit here and talk shit about women who are doing these amazing things? Like, we can see you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would love to know where I was pushed through. Like,
yeah,
I did every phase twice.
Dang.
And it's not because I was given a pass. Like there's I hope nobody has to go through what I did with the attention or the comments or the treatment. Like, and I'm not saying everybody in ARTV, like I'm not saying everybody, but like, yeah, there's gonna be, look, you know, I went after 3 months of being the RS1 that oversees the manning, that oversees, has a part with the recruiting and understanding what that's like. And I understand that's a goal for many infantry officers and NCOs to put a packet in and get, be looked at. And now I'm going through, so I went through RAF where I'm at the same standard that's a higher standard than Ranger School. It's a higher physical standard. So I went through RASP. So like they're not going to send me to Ranger School if I can't meet the physical standards first off,
Right.
or the psychological or the skills or anything. And I go to school and I see officers who are grading me because I went through as a captain as well. So it's not like I came right out of Bullock. Like at that point I had like 7 years in the Army, 6 years in the Army. Like I can see behind the curtain. Um,
Pup.
and there's guys, that are grading me that don't have a scroll on their uniform. And now they have this chick that you can dictate quite a bit. And I'm not saying all of them. But there was a lot of that going on. And like there's nothing I can do about it other than take it and work harder and figure out how to get, like, I got to get through the school. I want to go back to my job. Like I want to go
Yeah.
take care of Rangers. I want to go take care of this unit. I want to go work for this unit. And like I need to, like they need me to go do my job. So there is a lot of that going on. And again, I was the first one to make it through the RPFT from regiment as a woman. And I mean, it started right when I was doing my sit-ups, like just the comments and things I had to do. And there's a lot of guys I know that if they went through that, like I hope no guys had to, go through that level of type of stuff. I'm sure they have in the past, but standards were not dropped. Like if anything, it was almost an unattainable standard some days.
I
And
would
that's
I would even go
yeah,
ahead,
like
man.
going into this whole deal, like it's serious. It's already hard as fuck. It's not an easy thing to get into. Now once you're in,
Yeah.
it's fucking hard. And now this jerk off wants to, you know, make it harder for me just because I'm not the same as him, which is
Hmm.
already fucked up. How did you deal with that? Like, you can't just pop up and be like, "Hey, man, I know that was fucking 5 good ones." Like, you can't just get up and punch somebody. You gotta just suck it up. And but how do you deal with that? Because I know inside I'd be exploding, and I know you were totally exploding.
Oh yeah.
How did you
I mean,
harness
even
that?
with the push-ups, I mean, I was 48ed my first push-ups, and then I get in line, and it's like, okay, so watch me do 49 or whatever the number is, perfect push-ups again. You want to make me do it a third time? Like, I'll do it a third time. Um, I don't know. Like, I knew me going through. It wasn't about me. It was a much bigger picture. So it's just game time. Like it's the same psychology behind that. Like going into a championship game, like you're in another mindset. And I said this, so I spoke at the Georgetown ROTC this week, and I got asked a similar question, like, what was your mindset going through all of that? And it's like, if you're a good person and you're angry, and I mean like angry, and you can channel that anger into something productive, you are dangerous. You can be fucking dangerous. And that was my mindset, where it was like I can't. There were a few times that the anger made me like reckless, and I I I lost it maybe a couple times, but for the most part I did my best to just turn that anger um and disappointment into, like, there's a bigger picture here. And like time doesn't stop. Like eventually I'll get there. And they can't, like, they can try to do whatever they want to me, but they don't have control over my mind.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know that I was gonna say earlier. I think these folks that are saying that the standards are dropped and it was much easier for you, blah blah blah. I would argue that it was much more difficult because you have the same challenges as all the males that are there. On top of now, you're a female there,
Hmm.
and when years ago when the army said, okay, we're going to allow women to serve in combat arms, and there was a big uproar. I mean, at that point, I was already in the reserves. I'd been out of the infantry, right, and was doing the drill sergeant gig and in the reserves. And I've at this point, I've already worked with females, and I'd encountered a lot of females who had done some pretty impressive things overseas. And I know that, like, when I came into the reserves, I definitely had that, like, army infantry mentality where, like, everybody else sucks and we're cool. And so then I encounter all these different people in the army and other MOSs and other jobs and other roles, and females, males, doesn't matter. And you really start to learn that, like, plus when you factor in, like, our experiences when we were in Iraq in '04, you really start to learn that, like, it doesn't matter what your gender is. Um, there are some really fucking badass people out there who are doing badass things, and there are people out there who are just not doing anything.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter the gender, right? It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what your orientation is. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. Badass people have been doing things for a very long fucking time. Um, I'm actually really glad that, like, uh, so Tyree and I talked about, like, in March, Women's History Month, and we want to showcase, like, all of these badass women that are doing badass things. And that's why I asked you to be on the show, because you are definitely one of them. So you're over there talking about it's going to be a short conversation. It's not going to be a short conversation. It's going to be a very long conversation.
Yeah, it can go a lot of paths too.
Yeah. But no, so, like, but I just want to, I point out to people all the time, like, oh, you think that women can't serve in the infantry? You think women can't do combat roles? You think women can't go to ranger school? They can't go to SF? And one of the big arguments is, like, do you think if I was wounded in combat that a woman could carry me out? It's like, dude, I am 6'2", 240, and I probably couldn't drag your ass out, right? Because gear, fucking, it's just weird, blah blah blah. So it's a dumb argument. And other countries um currently are, have shown that, like Israel with the IDF, like, women serving combat roles. When you look at in history, there have been women serving in combat roles for a long fucking time, and they do
Hmm.
just fine. So it's just this
Hmm.
weird mentality that, for whatever reason, we're stuck in. And I'm so glad that the army, the military, integrated that, did away with it, and said women can serve in these roles too. And I'm so glad that there are women that are stepping up to those challenges, and facing the extra challenges that come along with it, and saying, you know what, I don't care what you have to say about me being able to perform these things, because I'm going to show up, and not
Hmm.
only am I going to perform, but I'm going to perform better than you.
Yeah.
So you talk about going to ranger school and you completed every phase, or you did every phase twice. Fuck me,
Yeah.
that's insane. That's terrible.
Yeah.
But here you are.
Honestly, it's terrible in a selfish way. It's terrible because of what it did to my brain for a while, and what it did to my body. But it's not terrible and for everybody else. Like, it's terrible for me, but it doesn't matter. There's plenty of people who have sacrificed more, and I mean, I got to meet twice as many bad boys. Like, I got to make twice as many friends. I got to meet twice as many guys that are down in teams that know what I'm about. That know that they have someone who's willing to break their body to make sure that their HR is good. Like,
Hmm.
to make sure that they actually have a full platoon. Um, that they've got people that, they don't have to be pulled off of the line to go do a support role, because I'm getting you to strength. Like, I'm getting you to operational strength because I care. I care about giving you that support. So, and it's twice as much of a purpose of, like, yeah, when I want to complain because my job is hard, like it's not hard compared to them and what they have to do out on target and like how they're physically training every day. Like, so it was twice as much of that emotional connection to those young men, and that many more friendships. Like, there's a couple guys that were going through the med board process that I went through school with. Maybe it was like a year after we graduated, they're going through the med board process. And I was like, just come up and work for me. Like as you're going, I couldn't imagine, going through all of that, multiple deployments and then getting med boarded, like the emotional
Mhm.
burden that would be for someone. I'm like, no, just come up, work for me. Like we'll get you set for college. Like I'll write you letters of rec. Like you'll still feel a purpose. You'll be a part of my team. Just work in my shop. And and that happened maybe two or a couple times. They got their masters and they're doing great stuff now. So it's like maybe that wouldn't have happened if I spent that long there. And it's like I didn't go there to try to prove people that don't think I should be there. I went there because I wanted to take care of Rangers and I wanted to take care of the people that, I thought had the hardest job in the Army.
Dude, that is
Nice.
selfless as fuck. They reminded me of a conversation. So I was listening to actually today, ironically, the Joe Rogan podcast. He had Mike Glover on, the founder of Fieldcraft Survival. Guy was a career special forces, and then 20 something years in the Army, gets out and goes off and becomes a CIA contractor and is just bored with life. And he was talking about how the Army doesn't really prepare. They'll send you to school after school after school, leadership school, this school, that school, make you better at your job. But when it comes time for you to transition out, there's nothing. He talked about, it was a week for him to out process thereabout, and then bam, special forces, sergeant major to civilian, Mr. Glover.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a tricky situation. We had that conversation on our episode Bingo with Rob Absher, the guy, yeah,
With
actually,
Rob. Yep.
yeah, and he talked
The
about,
guy I know.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
like my best friend in the White Falcons. Yeah.
And I'm sure you caught that part of the show. We talked about, like, you know, what happens after the Army, kind of scares him, because he's been in the Army his entire adult life, and
Yeah.
it really gets you kind of wondering. So, like, you doing that for these troops, bringing them up there and saying, "Hey, I'm going to help you with this transition. I'm going to set you up for success." Like, the Army needs that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's badass that you're doing it for these people and you're getting them prepared for the next step. But, like, I mean, what would it take for the Army to even do that? You know?
It would have to give up something else culturally. Like it would have to give up it would have to give up its indoctrination somewhere, and I don't know how to do that in the larger picture. Like I understand, I've seen things like there's a reason for, shaving your head and getting muddy and getting dirty and getting sleep deprived and stripping your own identity. And there's a reason for things like that to happen at certain units. Um, I don't know. I think I think it's got to people are got to find more comfort in being a little bit more rebellious
Mm.
because there's such peer pressure in the military. Like, and peer pressure can be a good thing, right? Don't get me wrong. But the amazing men that I have been able to work with, like Rob, um, they're not scared of stepping up and stepping out. The guys that I wanted to follow to 75th, the guys that like those are the ones that have the courage to step up and be forward thinking, open minded, and but not increase the risk of weakness. And maybe changing honestly, I think we've got to like see the perspective that, and this is why I love that I'm in the talent management world, because there's a lot of power from diversity in general. And I'm not just talking about diversity of, gender, sex, color, religion. Obviously that is, but it's like even diversity even comes from like what your hobbies are, where you were growing up, like what culture you have. And especially when we look at the diversity of like gender and sex, like I look at things differently. Um, Me being high on the empathy scale, right? Like that's a that's an asset to a team, not just being high on the empathy scale because I care about the people that I'm working for. Because, okay, how do you know your enemy? You have to understand where your enemy's coming from. Like you need to activate that empathy to understand and go around and look at it from a different um, perspective. And you can see yourself, you can see your blind spots, you can see your weaknesses, and drop that ego through empathy. And the empathy, the teamwork, the inclusiveness, the patience, traits like that are generally feminine traits. Like we hear those things and we're like, oh yeah, we need to have that as a leader. Okay, well, I sure as hell know that if you bring someone in, it doesn't just have to be a woman, but people who have those feminine traits, like that makes a team better. And I don't say that because I'm not saying the army needs to get more feminine. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying the power of diversity and the power of actually looking at when you have people that think differently or have different perspectives, have different experiences, have different beliefs, you become more well-rounded and you become holistically way more lethal because you have all of these different talents and perspectives. And like, okay, there's a reason why there was man after man after man in that position before I got there, and I fixed it because I look at things differently. I look at it with that AG mindset. Take the female thing out of it. They hadn't had an AG officer there in a really long time. So that diversity of, oh, we don't need that like paper pushing MOS, like whatever, you do. You need that diversity of thought and that diversity of perspective to make you more lethal. And I think once we start seeing the power in that, and we have leaders that have the courage to step up and say that, and really stress the importance of diversity, people will start catching on.
It's about time they start catching on. I mean, the world is a completely different place. It sucks that, um, when I was in fully, there was no women in the infantry, no women in combat, period. No gays, none of that kind of stuff. Keep that shit
That
quiet.
you knew of.
Yeah, that we knew of, exactly. Keep that shit quiet and fucking
They've
away
been there.
from everybody else. Like it makes no sense to me that, exactly like you're saying, talented people, regardless of what, if they sit down to peer, if they stand up, you know, it doesn't fucking matter. You're losing out on great talent because you want to have some kind of old school mentality that you can't get over for whatever reason. And I think it's fucking awesome that, things are starting to come together now. It sucks it took so long, but at least it started to come together a little bit. And I'm very happy to see someone like you at the forefront of that. So if
Thanks.
I'll stop,
There's
nosing.
yeah, and like we can't discount the awesome guys that I've worked with that have been there to welcome me in as well.
Mm.
Not necessarily make it easier for me or push me along. That's not what I'm saying, but like to actually get to play with them, like to actually play on the team with them.
Yeah.
I would not have been able to integrate if it wasn't for people like Rob or those guys that you know I would I would I would die for them.
Mm.
Um,
You keep mentioning
it
it, Rob. Like,
Yeah, no, because I listened to it yesterday.
yeah, I don't know. Like you're friends with him. We've been friends with him forever. He's a
Yeah.
very cool person. What was your reaction or relationship with him initially? Because he's a little bit of an off kind of a person. I guess he was, up there in rank at that point when you met him. We knew him as a special,
So
you know.
so when I became the battalion S1 of White Falcons, uh, I had no S1 experience. I was a postal platoon leader and had just gotten back from deployment, and so I had no like actual like HR operations S1 experience. It's like pulling somebody off of the line, like a platoon leader to put them as an S1. So, but I had like some training from school. I had an understanding of like generally what I'm supposed to do. Um, and then I quickly realized that, as an S1, you need to have a solid relationship with the first sergeants, not necessarily the company commanders. It's more so the first sergeants and like when I got there, that S1 shop, metrics wise, was the worst battalion in the 82nd Division. And I was like, okay, so that means like everything has to change. Like whatever systems that they were trying to do, like everything has to change. So I just talked to all 6 of the first sergeants and was like, what, tell me what you need. Like, that was the relationship I had with my platoon sergeant was, what do you need me to do for the platoon? Like, where do you need me to protect you? What assets, what support do you need me to get from these thousands of meetings I have to go to? Like, tell me what you need, and then I will get that for you, for my platoon sergeant. So I kind of had that same perspective with the first sergeants, was like, what do you need me to do? Like, where is this broken and everything? And then that working relationship with Rob, he took the time to really sit with me and explain it all to me, where the systems were broken, what was broken, the personalities, the culture, everything like that. So I took a lot of that information and just kind of built a new system. Um, and and it was just a good, like, yeah, we know you're a chick, but you're fitting in with us. You're jumping out of planes with us. You're not falling out of wrecks with us. Like, you're okay. You can hang physical fitness wise. Oh, and you're fixing this stuff. So we just worked together as a team and made it work. And we ended up becoming the best HR metrics battalion in the division like a year and a half later. So that was my working relationship with him.
That's a pretty badass OER bullet too.
But it wasn't just me. It was like the fact that it's like, you got to go to the people and say, like, what do you need? Like, what do you need me to do for you? And then you just collect those ideas and you collect that stuff and you just build it from what they need.
Well, that's
So.
being an enlisted guy, we're getting a new commander in my unit pretty soon, actually, and it's always a dreadful moment, right? When you get when the leadership changes, new BC, new commander, whatever, and the ones that can have direct impact on your day-to-day life or however it works out. And so to get that new commander that comes in, or that new officer that comes in, who then comes to the senior enlisted and says, "Hey, what do you need from me? How can we make this work?" Because they have that team mentality. Man, that is something that I look forward to. Like that's like relief, right? Because you get those ones that come in and it's working great, and then they just try and like, well, I have my own ideas on how this is supposed to go, and so we're going to take everything that you're doing and throw it the fuck away, and we're going to do it my way now. And that actually just happened recently in my unit as well, at a higher level. And man, it is a pain in the ass.
It's hard. Yeah.
Difficult, very difficult. But we're getting through, and that was actually, it's getting a little better. Some of the things that were being implemented or being told to be implemented were very extremely questionable, like borderline
Illegal.
You might say definitely in violation of certain UCMJ things. At the request of this particular individual, and we were just like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. That's not going to do that at all, because I don't want one of my soldiers or myself to be brought up on any type of charge as it relates to, say, Sharp or EO. So it was this whole thing, but I thought of something earlier and I completely forgot it now.
I got a question.
Yeah, there you
go. You're very much team oriented with everything you do. You say, you're a big basketball fan. How did you get into that? Because I know not everyone loves to hoop it up. So what made you get into basketball? And it's because it clearly shaped everything in your life a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the only way I made sense out of the military was through basketball. Like, how I describe what I do as an AG officer is through basketball to my family. I didn't really have a choice, man. Like, I'm the youngest of 4. We're all 4 years apart. So by the time I was born, my sister was 13 playing basketball. Both of my brothers, in between my sister and I, played basketball. My sister played in college. Like, I was 7 and watched her make like the winning play to win the national championship. Nice. For Division III. So like, and I'm like right underneath the basket. So that just sports, so she's a college coach for Seton Hall, and my other brother is a head men's lacrosse coach at Wilkes University, and then my other brother played football in college. So I, and being the youngest, like I didn't grow up with a lot of money either. Um, but what I grew up on was like legit being in the car, and my parents didn't miss a single one of my siblings' games if they could help it. So I was constantly, since I was born, just watching sports. Like I learned how to walk on bleachers. Like that was where I took my first steps, was on at a basketball game. So it was my life. Like that was my identity, was playing basketball. So,
You have a favorite?
and I was a point guard. So I mean,
There you go. There you go. So who's your favorite team and player when you're growing up?
so I was 7 when the WNBA started. And that was, Cynthia Cooper and Teresa Weatherspoon, and like that Brandy Chastain tore her shirt off when I was 7 or 8 years old. Like that was when women were really like having a platform for being athletes. So that's had a huge impact on me. Um, and yeah, so
So in on
definitely, Liberty and Teresa Weatherspoon, like that was something I could that was something that like I could do now,
yeah.
as a bat, where all I did was play with boys until I couldn't. Like I would play on the all-star team a year up with those boys until there were girls leagues. And even then my mom and dad didn't put me in the female leagues. They put me on the boys leagues. I played football, like, and then all of a sudden there's this opportunity now where it's like, oh man, if I'm good enough, like I could play in the WNBA. And I think that all is extremely molding for why I've decided to do certain things and go for certain things, is because like there's young girls that are 7, 8 years old that see women like us and are like, hell yeah, like I can do that. Like I could be that. And that's way more important than anything I've done in a shop.
And that reminded me, and this is really what I want to talk to you about. I mean, don't get me wrong, super badass that you're a ranger and you've done all these badass things. Um, but the reason, like I saw your Instagram, um, and I scrolled through it and I read some of your posts, and you talk a lot about empowerment, women in the military and women in general, right? Because what you talk about in the military can definitely be applied to women who are not in the military.
Oh yeah.
So you're trying to get this community going. Your username on there is balance your grit, and I want, can you kind of explain where you came up, like what does that mean to you?
So what that means to me. So none of us, man or woman, achieves these really hard things without having some level of grit and selflessness. And towards towards the end of my time serving as the RS1, I I was not healthy, like at all. And I didn't even realize it. Um, because it was my normal. Like it was completely my normal to just stay completely focused, and all that mattered was my job. Like all that mattered was being the RS1. And so with that, I would ignore a lot of things. I would tolerate a lot of things, not necessarily from that unit, but I mean, you see what people post on Facebook, like even when I graduated Ranger School, like that was the last time I saw my dad healthy, and he's reading these comments, before he passed away. And like, so all of that type of stuff, like you ignore it and you stay focused on your job. And especially with the, um, let's face it, like brain damage that I went through from Ranger School, being there for like 200 days, like I was just ignoring it and I was just gritting through it and doing my job, and I never asked for help. And I never reached out to the female Ranger community on Facebook. I wasn't even a part of it until a year ago, because I was like, I don't want anything that like isolates me anymore for being a woman than I already am. And that's where my mind was at the time. I don't agree with that now. But that was my mindset I was in. I was extremely competitive, extremely focused, extremely like just whatever, you can throw whatever at me and I'll deal with it and get my job done. And it got to the point where I really lost my identity. I lost who Sydney was. I lost my femininity. I lost, being proud of being a woman. I started like resenting myself. And I was dealing with all of these things alone in my own mind. Like I wasn't really sharing it with my ex-husband either. And it got to the point where I needed help. Like I went through a lot of therapy, and that's kind of why I ended up doing that training with industry in Orlando, is because I actually got a break to go through a lot of therapy.
Oh, man.
And what I
How
realized is
great
like,
therapy is. It's
yeah,
people always shy away from therapy. They always think it's a bad.
yeah,
It's fucking awesome.
yeah. Like I mean, we're talking like really bad paranoia, disordered eating, like a lot of that type of stuff that I mean, I didn't even realize it was happening to me. It was just my normal. And so then once I moved up here to DC after I'd done like a year of therapy and everything, I actually joined the Female Ranger Facebook group, and I was like curious if there were other women maybe posting things about that. Like now that I'm at a place where I'm comfortable to talk about it, because I wasn't. Like if I talked about anything about Ranger, I would have night terrors, like waking up screaming type stuff. And I had gotten to the point where I was comfortable talking about it maybe and like reaching out and seeing if there's anybody else that had gone through it. And because I mean, I was just quiet about it. And so I read through the entire Female Ranger Facebook group, and a lot of it was prepping for school, like packing list stuff, like what to expect, what the school is like, and all of the comments like that are extremely important. But I didn't see really many of us who had graduated, um, infantry women, like posting about the psychological social stuff that we were going through. So I put this long post introducing myself. Um, I knew that some of them knew who I was, but I was serving at the Ranger Regiment. Like I couldn't be on social media. Like I couldn't talk. It was an OPSEC thing. Like I couldn't, first off.
Yeah.
um, and I just introduced myself, said what I had gone through, said what I had done, like where I am now. And I was like, if you have experienced anything like this, of this like laundry list of shit in your brain, like I am here for you if you need someone to talk to. Um, and my phone did not stop blowing up for like 2 weeks, from other women who were experiencing similar things. And they were like, I had no idea anyone else felt this way. I've never talked about this before until you posted that, and like, can we talk? Because I thought I was failing. I thought I was the problem. Like I thought that I wasn't good enough. And knowing that you experience the same stuff, can we talk about it? And I'm like, sure. And then it was like 3 or 4 months of just unsustainable, like emotionally unsustainable for me, because it was like a lot of really long phone calls late at night and everything. And so I just decided to turn it into this Instagram page. And long story short, sorry for the long story, but like
No.
that women like us need to have. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be doing these jobs or that we're not doing these jobs well. But there's a lot of extra shit that we go through that we just don't really talk about. And we don't really share it. We don't know who to talk to about it. And that grit isn't going away, but you need to balance that, like going hard in the paint every single day. Um, you need to have that coach that can coach you through it, and balance you out and remind you that like you can't stay at a 10 out of 10 grit level and expect to come out the other end healthy. Um, so just balancing it with just self-care and mental health and having a sister that you can talk to. So it's really the backstory behind this Instagram page, was just kind of sharing these very, very consistent, similar conversations, similar issues, similar questions, similar concerns, like similar problems that some of these women are facing alone and quiet, and bringing it out to show other people like you're not alone. Like sometimes that's all these women need to hear. Like honestly, like sometimes if I post something about like paranoia, so that's all these women need to hear is like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not the only one. This is what's fucked up in my head. I'm gonna go fix it, and we're good to go. Rather like to actually do something about it. But when you're feeling alone and extremely isolated and thinking that like I'm weak because of this, like sometimes that's all they need to know is, all right, there's nothing wrong with me, but okay, I know I can fix it and I know I can come out okay on the other side. So I'm gonna go do that and keep working.
I like it. I mean, oh my gosh, it's establishing this support group that desperately needed to be established. And I mean, you got to think it's 2023 and this is still an ongoing problem. And it's one of my biggest complaints about the army. And I don't really I try not to rant too much about it because I'm still in, but the army does an absolute shit job at taking care of female troops in a lot of these ways, right?
Hmm.
I mean, even male troops, male troops go through things as well, but there are certain things that are unique to the female soldier, and it's just a shit job at handling it, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to sharp and something happens with a female, and she is discharged because of mental health issues, while the aggressor, the assaulter, is maybe demoted but gets to stay in. Like, what fucking justice is that?
Yeah, maybe not even like mental health stuff, like removing her because oh she's the problem.
Right. Yeah. It's
Which
not it's
still is
not the right
happening.
answer.
It still is happening a lot, even
Mhm.
just based off of allegations.
Yeah, no, and it's
Um,
it's absolute horseshit. I mean, it's not the right answer. And here we are, like,
it comes from the leadership.
yeah.
Like, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
no, no,
I'm
you know,
just passionate about it.
no, you're fine. Like, no, say all the words. Because that's
I
why we're here.
I look at my battalion leadership from the White Falcons, when I was a battalion S1 there, and like I knew. So you have to understand, like I'm coming from being an athlete that's played on a lot of teams with only boys. Like it's I'm not necessarily like I'm not one of those girls that's like I don't have any friends that are girls. I'm not like that. But I developed my social skills on male teams. Um, and so I didn't think it was that crazy and that unique to have a battalion commander and a battalion command sergeant major, who of which his first assignment outside of 75th Ranger Regiment was in that battalion. So um, I didn't know anything different than having coaches that and bosses and commanders that would treat me like a team like a player like a teammate, and regardless of what my gender was, is because like I could do my job and protect me, and actually when I go to them with a problem, like trust that they had my back, and maintain that trust and not have to just be able to do my job. I didn't realize how unique that was to be able to work for two men, one from the 75th and one who was a former Marine, um, completely empower me to just do my job. And when I had a problem, I could trust them to help me through it. And they owned the integration. They owned it. Like they told me straight up my first day, they were like, we own the success of your integration. Your responsibility is to do your job. Our responsibility is to make sure our culture allows you to do your job. And that was it. Like bottom line, that was our relationship, and it was beautiful. Um, and there's you can find that in certain places, and I think hopefully with pages like this and like with women and guys have like more frequently having these conversations and seeing that like yeah it does exist and like have the courage to do that, hopefully that starts happening more frequently, but that's not the case, and still in a lot of places like command teams don't realize like you own that. You own the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's this whole so social media is a big thing today in this world, and with Instagram pages like US Army, what the fuck, where people are getting blasted constantly. You would think that would be enough for command teams or NCOs or whoever the shit. You think that would be enough? Like someone's screenshotting something or recording something and sending it off and trying to call your ass out. You would think, I mean, and that, don't get me wrong, that doesn't change the culture, that doesn't change those people, and they need to change. Their mindset needs to change, but at least it should be some type of a deterrent from doing and saying dumb shit and getting in the way of the things that are inevitably going to happen, right? Women deserve every fucking same right in this in the
Hmm.
military, outside of the military, to do these roles, to do these jobs, without um all these other additional fucking speed bumps and this other bullshit that's in the way.
Yeah.
um it's ridiculous, and I like to bitch about it a lot because, one, I'm a guy, and
Hmm.
I'm a drill sergeant, and I was an infantry soldier, right? So I mean, I went to war back in '04 when it was the Wild West, right? And so everybody has this expectation that, like, when they speak to me on this subject about, like, when it comes to integration, oh, this guy's totally going to agree with me when I say that women shouldn't be in combat arms. And they're surprised when I say, like, you're kind of an idiot for saying that, because women do amazing things. Like, it's been proven time and time and time and time and time again. And so it kind of throws these people off. And then as a drill, a lot of all the basic training sites have now integrated male and female. And I remember when that happened, and a lot of drills are like, oh man, now we're gonna get females. We're gonna have to lower the standards. There's gonna be this problem. There's gonna be that problem. Parade pretty, blah 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 blah. And to me, that says a lot more about that person saying those things than it is the
Yeah.
troops coming in.
Yeah.
And I also just take it personal anyway, because um as a drill sergeant, I give a fuck, right? Like, their training matters to me. My first time on the trail, I mobilized in 2009 for a year, and the average deployment time after training was 63 days. So 2 months later, they could find themselves in Iraq or Afghanistan. And that really hit home with me. I was like, fuck, man, like,
Yeah.
the only combat training these folks are going to get is from me, from the other drill
Yeah.
sergeants here. And I had a wealth of knowledge from my deployment in '04. And I felt this personal need to give them every bit of knowledge that I had. And in a way, it helped me a lot too, because I was able to talk about things when I hadn't really been able to talk about them before. I forced myself to do that, but I wanted them to understand, like, what's going to happen there, what's going to happen when they come home. And so now I look at it as, with all this bullshit that's going on in the army, with all these different cases of, like, Vanessa Guillen, and all these other cases like that, where these women are just kind of being, like, shoved off to the side. Well, you know what? We'll name a gate after them. Like, that's not the answer. So now when I look at my female soldiers, this last cycle that I did last year, I cannot remember her name, but there was a soldier in Wiesbaden, Germany. She was based out
Yeah.
of Fort Gordon or Fort Stewart. Ended up being murdered, or they said suicide, whatever. And I'm sitting there, I'm staring at my platoon, and I'm looking at my female soldiers, and I had to hold back fucking tears, because I'm like, man, this could be any one of them, and I don't want that. I don't want that to be. I want them to feel that they can speak up. I want them to
Hmm.
feel that they can trust the males around them to do their
Hmm.
part and to speak up. And I want them to feel safe in the United States Army. I want them to feel safe from all that bullshit. And I don't have that confidence in the big
Yeah.
army anymore. I don't.
I get it. And you know what like narrative honestly needs to start being said from the male community as well is like, so I'm AGM the S1. So I mean, every hour I'll have somebody in my office, like just asking HR their career stuff or just asking for help. And it's like a byproduct of being an S1. You're almost like a therapist. So like you hear everything, you know everything that's going on in the unit. You know, pretty much everything about everybody, especially at that battalion level. Um, and what people don't realize is like the men that we have problems with and women that those women have problems with that are treated weird by, like you just get these weird vibes or you are straight up treated poorly. Um, that's not an isolated incident. And it's not just isolated in the sexual harassment, sexual abuse side, meaning like it's not just isolated in that category. Typically, these people who are shitty, there's a trail. Like there's other comments about them being hard to work with, or being an asshole, or not being good at their job, like not making the right decisions. And like it's not just isolated to the sexual harassment and sexual abuse category. And many times, like we'll see those people go down for something, and it's like, oh, you don't think it's not a coincidence that they're also the ones that are toxic for other reasons. And I see that I saw that as an S1 because I'm personnel, like I run the personnel stuff. So I would see these trails, and it's like, yeah, like I wouldn't feel hesitant to say, um, I am being treated inappropriately by this person, because from my mind, I already know that they're jacked up in many other ways because I hear it and I see it. And I think that's one of the things. It's like it's not all men. Like I love working with guys. Like I love supporting those units, and it's not all of them, but the ones that like make it rough and the ones that are bad, like it's not just isolated to women. It's consistent to the other men too.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I mean, right. The problems that I don't know. I get mad. I just get mad at the idea of that it's treated like it's one-sided.
Yeah.
That it's only unique to one side, and that men in the military can do no wrong. And you see that at the highest commands
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
it floors me because what was it? I cannot remember her name. The CSM that just got selected to
I posted it in my story too. I'm not good
uh
with names. Let me look it up.
Wait,
uh
It's literally on my story right now.
I
what's going on?
know. She just got selected for what she gets. This is JSOC.
No, it's like the big dog, man.
Gosh, I can't even remember her name. It's
I
something.
Let me get it.
Oh, wait, she took the picture with like the really big bugged out eyes.
Oh my God.
She,
That's nah,
not the best picture taken, Tyree. Damn.
I'm sorry, my bad.
Here we go.
I'm judgy.
Yeah.
Command Sergeant Major Nauman.
Right.
Nauman for literally USASOC.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
up
for
there.
USASOC.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that is up there. And so, I hope that I mean, just like I would hope for any male in any position, that they live up to the standards
Hmm.
that are required at that position. But I also hope that like she doesn't encounter the same bullshit that she ever encountered. And I'm sure she has. I'm sure through her career she has encountered just as much bullshit, if not more, with her being in
Yeah.
for as long as she's been in. But what I'm hoping is, when you talk about these people when they get to higher commands and they get busted doing something that they shouldn't be fucking doing, and it's like slap on the wrist, you know. Even it doesn't even have to be high commands. There was a company commander at Louisiana National Guard that was allowed to retire with full pension after motorboating one of his soldiers.
Saw that.
Dude, don't even get me started on that shit.
It's fucking
Yeah.
wild. And I hope that when women step into these roles, and because I feel like as I'm
Here's the other thing though, that like it's not there is such a there's a slew of staff people between the incident and that position of influence and power. And I'm not excusing, punishment decisions or things like that, but there's a lot of people, echelons, command teams, staff, um, of between something happening and that type of a multi-star level. And it's sometimes it can be like the game of telephone where
Mm,
like the situations and stories that like I talk to these I mean, I'm on the phone with girls like maybe 2, 3 times a week, and just helping them like guide them through certain stuff. Like I'm talking like second lieutenants, first lieutenants, where they don't really know the army yet. Like they don't know the bureaucracy behind it. They trust everybody. They think the system is pure. They think there isn't corruption, and they trust what, your commander tells you to do. It's how it should be. And there are many steps along the path of like that incident, that investigation being done by like a brand new captain before it gets to that level of people that make the decision. And sometimes I feel like that's where the system is broken, between that IO like truly depicting what the hell happened and it being like not misconstrued, or like how do you get the truth of what happened to be fully understood by the people that need to fully understand it. Um, and I think that's kind of where the disconnect is. And I trust that like women like her, even men that are in those positions, like I had a phone call a few weeks ago with a girl who's like, she's she's really going through it right now. Like it's tough. And I know her, one of her senior leaders, and I kind of just like had a conversation with him where I was like, do you know fully what's going on here? Um, and there's a disconnect, man. Like there's a disconnect between that IO doing their freaking job, um, and truly actually saying what is happening.
Yeah. When does it seem like in some cases that the IO is just like, I just want to get through this. Yeah, I just
Well,
want to
it's
get the
that, but
sworn
it's
statements
also
done.
scary. Like it's think about it. Like you're a platoon leader or you're a company commander, and now all of a sudden you're the IO that might be handling an investigation that includes powerful, important people.
Yeah.
And they're 3 years in, 4 years in, and there's, you know, I'm not saying the whole army's bad. Like I'm not painting this like horrific, horrible picture, but something has got to be relooked with that process.
I agree. I do, because I mean, it kind of seems to me. I've seen some investigations where the IO like genuinely cares. We want to get to the bottom
Yeah,
of it, and they want to
for
use
sure.
all of the words that they know to
Yep.
to articulate what
Hmm.
actually happened. And then there are just some cases where like what was said and then what ends up on the sworn statement doesn't match, or they don't even fully explain the process. Um, I've encountered that with people where they come out of it and they're like, I didn't even realize that that was what it was. I didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't explained to me that like this is a one and done sworn statement, or
Yeah.
whatever the hell. And it just, I feel bad for folks in that
Yeah.
situation. But
You you're bringing up a lot of really good points because they may not even know the right questions to ask.
mm,
And that's like through this page, like through Balance Your Grit, like the young women and guys that reach out to me and they're like, can I talk to you about this? Like, can I pick your brain on this? Or young women that are like, I don't know who else to talk to. I don't even know where to start. And it's like, I know the right questions to ask because I've been there. And I'm not asking you these questions coming from like an officer. I'm asking you these questions coming from like a big sister with that empathy. That's, yeah, maybe it's flowery. It's like, well, how did you react to that? Like, is that why maybe you didn't talk about these things, or helping finding the connection of a certain series of treatments leading up to something, or where they mentally, psychologically lost their confidence or didn't make that connection because they're still learning the culture. Like they're still learning what it is to be an infantry officer. Um, and it's like knowing the right questions to ask. And sometimes if you haven't been through that, you don't even know where to start digging up and asking the right questions to allow some of these young women. This is the first time they're actually even talking about it. They may not even be able to figure out the words to describe what happened, um, or allow their brains to make the connection that like, yo, like that's not right. Like that's not how it's supposed to happen because they don't have the experience of knowing how it is supposed to happen.
right.
So if you don't have an IO that knows how to ask the right questions and really crack open the seed, you're not going to get that information. And then the investigation is just not going to have anything tangible in it. It's just going to be like, oh, I felt this way. And it's not manipulating the situation. It's just knowing the right questions to ask.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of a thing too, right? So, any officer, depending on the level of the investigation, can be selected to be an IO. So, like, there's not any like training for that, right? There's no like when you go through any one of your like the BOLIC or captain's career course, there's not like, hey, so if you ever get selected to be the investigating officer of something, here are the steps to, in that process. Here's the questions to ask, or here's how to ask that question, or all of that stuff. Like, is there any of that?
Yeah, I mean, you meet with a JAG, like you meet with a lawyer that kind of gives you like a pre-brief to tell you like what to expect and everything like that. Um, so there is guidance there, but it's also like, and I'm not making excuses. Like this is just like a discussion topic, right? And it's like, okay, we've had integration in some of these. Integration's been there for a really long time with a lot of these units, but like now that it's out in the open and people know that it's there, like when I was in the full thick of it, like when I was a year and a half, I was out of Raider school. I'm doing my job, like I'm doing well at my job, like things are going well. When you're in that mindset of like completely put your blinders on and block out anything that could be going wrong because it's too much to handle. Did you lose me?
No.
Okay. All right. I don't even know if somebody had asked me, are you eating? I I would have said yeah. Or like, are you doing okay? Yeah, I'm doing okay. Um, and it's not even that I'm lying. It's that like you
It's not the right question.
yeah, and it's like it's different when you have someone that's asking the questions and like looking at you and feeling with you and actually creating a space where you can be honest with yourself sometimes. Um, and I don't know how to do that. Like I don't know how the Army does that. I don't think the Army knows how to do that. I don't think leaders know necessarily. Like, I mean, I don't know how to get to that point, which is why I just kind of do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know how to do that with these women that are going through it. Not because I'm trying to go on a witch hunt and like bring men down. Like that's not what I'm in. That's not what I'm doing this for. Like I'm doing this to allow that woman to like have a safe space to vent, to talk it out, to regroup, to figure out, okay, yep, that's where I'm kind of slipping. That's where that's a risk. Like, okay, let's mitigate that risk so that you don't make a destructive decision and you can stay on path and not get wrapped up in something that like because you're in a vulnerable state and you're lost internally that you're not going to make a bad decision. So that's kind of why I'm doing it. I don't know how the Army gets better at it. I just know that I'm doing what I can for these women. So
Yeah, and that's kind of that's all we can do, right? I
yeah,
mean, we can try and be as big as we want, or get our names out there or whatever. I actually saw a guy that we're planning to record with in about a month or so. A post that he had made on his Instagram talking about like the bigger my account gets, the more veterans I can reach, the more people I can help. And so that's why I wanted you to be on the show. And I just so happened to come across your Instagram the other day, or when I hit you up, when I messaged you.
yeah,
I was like, holy shit, like she is absolutely perfect. And because we wanted to do a thing, we talked about this like last October, November, for Women's History Month. So it just like the stars aligned, and I was like, absolutely. And when you said yes, I was like, I texted Irie immediately, and I was like, guess who we get to record with? I was super fucking excited. And so we've been looking forward to this. We've been looking forward to recording with this. Tyree, does your cup say cat dad?
Yes, it does.
cat daddy.
But, yeah, man, like when he explained like who or how he got into contact with you to come on to the show, and then like I wasn't exactly really familiar with everything. I'm out of the loop. I'm not in the military. But when I read the story and what is it like going on these kind of things where you're talking to people about this shit over and over again. And I'm sure it gets a little annoying, but is there ever anything that where you're like, wow, that was a good one? I walked away with some kind of feeling like somebody understood me. Does that ever happen?
Oh, it happens every I feel positive after every one of these because I think there's a curiosity about all of this because we don't really do a lot of um like let's face it, if I was still in the USASOC unit, I would not be doing this. Like I would not be speaking freely about these things, and I'm taking a risk, you know? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but that's nothing new. Like rebellious by nature, I guess. But
Mm.
I um I know what it's like to be in a mindset that just talking about those things, like I wouldn't be able to like swallow food or I wouldn't be able to sleep. And just having conversations like this, I know what it's like to be in at a place where I mentally could not talk about it. And I know what it's like to feel like nobody else, like feeling like I'm the only one that's going through this.
Yeah.
And it's my responsibility, man. Like knowing that I'm the first to do something and knowing what struggles come with it. If I wasn't finding a way to try to help these next women um, do it better, I'm not saying that us first ones didn't do it well, but regardless of how we did, we should just keep getting better. And it is my responsibility, like especially coming out of regiment with Abrams Charter, it's like you take what you learn there and you push it out to the conventional force, whether it's tactics or it's weapons or it's equipment or it's comms or whatever. And it's like I do feel like this is my responsibility to make sure that these women have a support system and, developing some of the girls, some of the first women that I have talked with, and they're at a place now where they're like, if there's women that you think that I can connect with, like you can hand them off to me and I can start taking and helping out with your like load of, of my list of women. And it's like that is so fucking cool to me. Like I didn't have that. I didn't have somebody I could talk to. What woman did I have to talk to? I
So
didn't have anybody.
you're blazing
So
all
it's
trails, man.
Yeah, and it's like there female culture, it's so fucking competitive and it can get catty and it's like, no, like we need to start changing that. And like young captains, like young NCOs now starting to feel the power of what it's like to mentor and support and like bring the next women along instead of like holding them down because it was hard for me, so it has to be hard for you. Like screwed, like no, like that is just so toxic. And it's like, no, like I should expect the next women that go to 75th, or I should expect the women who are in the White Falcons right now to not have to deal with what I had to deal with. They shouldn't deal with that. And that's on me to teach them how to deal with it.
Mm.
Um, so like that's my purpose. And like, yeah, it can get tiring sometimes, but it's not about me. It's the same thing about like Ranger School. Like it's not about me. It's about the bigger picture and it's about making the Army better. It's about making sure these women who are volunteering to do some like really difficult stuff, like it should not be as hard for them as as it was for many of us.
Yeah.
Did
And it
you?
shouldn't be as hard for the men that are leading them either. Like,
eh, to me, the ideal military would be a lot like in Starship Troopers. Have you seen that movie?
this is the second time that this comment has come up in a podcast, and I have not seen it yet, so maybe I'll do it tomorrow.
Well, okay, and so here's what I say, and I'm gonna it's gonna sound weird explaining it at first, but it'll make sense once I get to the end. But it's in the future, blah blah blah. We're bringing all these people in. A good bug is a dead bug, whatever, right? Males and females serving in the infantry, and do you want to live forever? Let's go. A whole thing. Anyway, okay. So there's a scene in the movie, not a spoiler.
Okay.
There's a shower scene in the movie, right?
Hmm.
Males and females in open shower bay, right?
Hmm.
And they're all just in there, talking shit to each other at like we do in the military,
Hmm.
and it's just what it is, right? And
Hmm.
and I'm not saying I want to shower with a bunch of dudes and chicks. I'm saying
Which
like,
which happens at Ranger School.
does it? What the hell?
Yeah.
Oh, I did. I had never even thought about the accommodations that you might have. Um. Well, that's okay. But so and so you might be able to relate then. So, but the point in me bringing that up and the point of that scene in the movie is to show because the guys in the shower are not staring at the naked chicks, right? They're not like, oh my
Hmm.
god, look at her, I can see her nipples, right? Like
Hmm.
that's not the point of it. The point of it is to show
Hmm.
that like they don't see the gender.
Hmm.
They're in this shit together. They're in this training together. They're going off to this planet to fight these bugs together as a unit, as a family, and
Hmm.
that's what the that scene is supposed to depict. And gosh, I would just love for the army to get to that point. Not that we need to be showering together, but like
Hmm.
that we don't see the gender, right?
Hmm.
The same thing happened when they repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Oh well, no way I'm going to serve next to a homosexual. Like, shut the fuck up, man. Like they're
Hmm.
already in the army. I don't know if you know that, but they're already
Exactly.
serving.
They're
They're
already there with you.
right. They're doing the job just as well, if not better than you, right?
Yeah.
You can go all the way back to when women were first integrated into the big army. My stepmom served in the Women's Army Corps before women were integrated into the actual
Damn.
army. And I've always thought that was fucking neat as shit. I was like, my mom was part of the WAC, right?
Hmm.
Even further back when you talk about the Buffalo Soldiers, right before
Hmm.
black folk were integrated into the regular army, and every time it happens, we're like, it's there's always this like this big pushback. It's not going to work. They're not as good as me. Blah blah blah. We're the best. And we don't need that. And then it happens, and there's a little bit of a struggle or a lot of bit of a struggle, and then it's like, huh,
It wasn't
it
so bad.
works.
Yeah.
It fucking works, and we're a better military because of it. And
Hmm.
the day we get to that point, and we're not discriminating against other motherfuckers because of the what's between their legs, or like as Tyree
Hmm.
put it, like whether they sit or stand to pee. um uh that'll be the day, right? That'll be the day that like our army, our military will be able to tackle even the largest of fucking world global problems. And we already do a pretty good job at it now, but
Hmm.
like imagine how much better we could be. We could be
Oh
so
my God,
much
yeah.
better.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And like, look, man, like there's units where it is like that. Like it is good. And again, it goes back to like that command team owning it and men that are holding each other accountable and women having the courage to hold those shitbags accountable too. And it's like, I mean, look at Europe. Like they have topless beaches in Europe. Like they have nudity. Like there's nudity there. It's I think it's like it's an American culture too of like
100%.
sexualizing women,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So
where
when
women are just constantly sexualized and then we're blamed for it.
yeah, no, yeah. So when I got stationed in Germany, we were walking downtown in downtown Schweinfurt, and I had been there for not even a week, right? And there was a display. So like we're walking down the cobblestone, there's all the shops on the left and the right, and there's a display out in the cobblestone for a photography shop that was just like 5 meters away. And this display was a display of the photographer's art, and it was nude art. And I was like, can they have that out here? Small town fucking Arkansas, like over in Germany, experiencing this whole other world, this whole other culture. And I'm just like, is that allowed? I remember seeing a billboard of just boobs, and it was got milk. The German for got milk, right? And it was just it's not the German folk, the Europeans,
Yeah.
they don't they don't look at sex the same way we do because it is so taboo here, right?
Hmm.
Um, you know, hormones kick in at a really early fucking age, and curiosity happens, and when you suppress a lot of that stuff, then other things arise. And I have my own opinions about um the origin of all that in the American culture, but I'm not going to get into that because we stay away
Hmm.
from that particular subject
Oh Lord.
on the show. But pretty anyway, it's a whole thing. But no, I completely agree. Like the American culture needs to change, and I keep asking myself, how do we solve the problem in the army of sexual harassment and assault? Well, it's not an army problem. I mean, it is an army problem because we have people in the army that do it, but it's an American society problem. It's a cultural
Yeah.
problem that we have. And fuck, man, like where does it start? I mean, you can raise your kid to be as polite as possible and manners and do the right thing morally and ethically and have a good head on their shoulders. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to encounter it. And maybe they get mixed up in a crowd when they become a young adult, and all of that shifts. So it's just it's a whole thing. But like the American culture has to change. But
Yeah.
I would love to see, because the military is this big conglomerate of different backgrounds, right? We're a subculture in itself, and I would love to see the military lead the way in that. And I think in some ways they for sure are. Um, and I mean that's kind of what you're doing. And I thought
Yeah.
of the question earlier. Do you, when you joined, was it in the back of your mind a little bit that you would kind of become this kind of pioneer in all of this? Did you think that that would go that way, or did you even kind of have that goal, or was it just kind of something that kind of came up and like opportunity arose and you're like, this needs to be addressed, and I'm in a position to do that?
That's a really good question. I mean, so when I was in college, the discussion of women going to ranger school was a serious discussion. And I did well in ROTC. Like I commissioned first in my class of like 40 cadets. So we had one of the largest like schools in the Northeast and at University of Scranton. And they hadn't had really the discussion of opening the infantry as an option, but I wouldn't have wanted to go infantry anyway. I wanted to be AG because I genuinely like taking care of people like that. And I might sound arrogant, but like I always knew there was something more for me. Um, I fucking hated high school. Like I was bullied really bad as a kid too. Like, and I only found a place in athletics and in sports. And I went through college, had like my party phase, like okay, like this is fun, and got that out of my system for the most part until I went to the White Falcons. But like I just always knew there was something more for me. Um, and I'm very comfortable in those all male environments. I don't think that that was my place. Like I was comfortable there. Like I was comfortable in that environment just because that's again socially how my brain wired when I was a kid. Um, and I just truly I'm not a big goals person either. And I talked to the cadets about this. And I don't know if that's like what the instructors want me to hear, what people, the army wants me to say, but rebel with a cause, I guess. But I don't fully believe in goals. I genuinely went into the army with like this mentality of volunteer for everything and do the absolute best that you can do. And just learn as much as you can, experience as much as you can, and just just be as good as you possibly can be. Not just for me, but like as good of a leader and do your job well. And like that just opened up a lot of doors for me. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a big goals person because like I had no idea like what the army freaking was. Like I like no shit as like a platoon leader, brand new to the army. I didn't even know what the scroll was. I thought like 175 scroll meant you graduated first in ranger school. I had no idea.
Hmm.
And then, but you're curious, right? Like I'm curious, so I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna self-educate. Like I need to know. I had no idea. I just, they teach you cadet stuff for 4 years, and then they throw you out into the army, and now you're an officer, and it's like, how am I supposed to be a platoon leader and get saluted, like, and not know these things? So I've just always been really curious and just had the mindset of like, just work as hard as I can, take care of people, and it'll work out. And that's kind of how I ended up on this path. And I knew I had something bigger than just do like,
Yeah,
do the middle.
yeah, just showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is
Soldiers don't deserve that.
No,
no,
absolutely.
So this has been an awesome show. I don't want to. We don't want to take up too much more of your time. I'm gonna
Well,
slide it.
I got one more
Real quick.
question for you.
I got
I,
one
Okay.
question too, man.
oh, what's your question?
For the new soldiers joining,
Yeah.
what would you say to them when they try to follow in your footsteps? What is the what would you tell them is the focus of how you made it through for yourself? How would you explain that to? That's a terrible question. I'm not really wording that
No,
correctly.
I know where you're getting at.
Yeah. Um, what would you say to a new soldier coming in? Flat out, somebody who just like you, wide-eyed baller out here trying to, cross up the nation in everything. Like, what would you say to somebody just joining and they see the things that you've done and they look up to you? What would you say to somebody like that?
So I would say two things. One, surround yourself with people that you want to be influenced by. And that includes finding a mentor, whether it's a E5 sergeant, a sergeant first class, lieutenant, captain, lieutenant colonel, whatever. Like, surround yourself where and put yourself in areas that you will be influenced by the people that you want to be like, that you want to be influenced by them. And you should have a mentor, like you should have somebody that you have the courage to go up to and ask, like, I want to learn from you, from every race, every gender, like every sexual orientation if they're open, and like not pressuring and asking, like, but like different MOSs, and being open-minded and asking questions and not just like assuming that you know everything, and wanting to learn. Like, you have to be curious and you have to want to learn and you have to want to volunteer and put yourself around people that you want to be influenced by, because you will become who you hang out with. And the second thing is, like, follow other people's paths until there's a point at which you can break off and make your own path. Like, you can't be intimidated by that. You can't be intimidated by being a little rebellious and changing your career path or changing and taking opportunities. The Army's going to tell you exactly what they want from you and what to do every single chance they get. But like, when there's an opportunity to make your own path or to try something new, like, you have to have the courage and excitement and anxiety to do that. Like, anxiety can be a healthy thing. You have to get excited when you feel anxious, and like, you got to fucking go for it. So I would say those two things.
Fuck yeah.
I
All right,
actually
Ken, what do you got?
wrote those two things down because I like those two things. Those are like, I mean, to me, those are, I mean, they seem obvious, but they also, to me, seem profound because I just don't think people kind of stop and think about, like, you know, uh, I don't think people, what is it, introspect? They don't think inwardly enough and about what they, you say you're not real big into goals, but I kind of feel like on some level you might be. Um,
She's a
And
vet.
they're more like
Get out of
Pisces
here.
brain goals. They're not like tangible goals. They're more of like, have a purpose, be happy, make the world better, like, be a good person, own up to your mistakes and like learn from your fucking mistakes. And like, I've made my mistakes. I mean, I'm not married for a reason, and it's like I failed in that marriage, and it's like you gotta own your shit. So it's like my goals are more like that type of stuff, not like I want to be a ranger qualified and ranger schooled. Like, I that wasn't an option. Like, it's not a goal. It's like, I have to, like, this is gonna happen.
Mm.
So
I like that too, and I actually so the I can't remember where I heard it, but when you make these things um musts instead of wants, right? I
mhm.
have to do this as opposed to like I want to do this. Um, when it comes to fitness, for example, I have to go to the gym. If I don't go to the gym, I don't feel well. If I don't feel well, then I don't perform well in the other aspects of my
Mhm.
life. So therefore, I have to go to the gym. So it's not a goal. It's just a thing that I have to do.
Yeah,
And
you
so,
just do it.
right, exactly. So I was going to ask you, how big do you want to take this? Balance your grit. Like how big can it be? How big do you want it to be? How much do you want to scale it? Like, what do you have plans for it?
Um, Something like this hasn't really been done before. Story of my fucking life. Um, so I've been in that space before, and I understand that if I stay focused on the purpose of why I started it, which is to help people and to make the Army a little bit better, to help guys, help women, help guys. And if I sometimes I can find that I get overwhelmed in trying to figure out, how do I monetize this? You know, am I willing to get out and turn this into something? Because I fucking love doing it. Like I love like helping these women potentially not deal with what I did. And I don't know, I'm not sure yet. Like I think about it a lot. Like I try to figure out like how big to take this. I'm not in it to get a shit ton of followers because then that means that I've got to create and start training other women to do what I'm doing, which they're volunteering to do. So that's really cool. Um, but I do know that if I stay focused on what the original intent and purpose is, that it'll work out. Like maybe I'll have to mature past that because that's how I've lived so far. Like again, as long as I'm like working hard, I'm doing the right thing, doors will open up, opportunities will open up, and just stay focused on still being good and leading, like being a good person, and it'll work out. So I'm kind of having faith in it in that way. Um, I do have products in mind that I want to create and I want to like sell, not necessarily like I could make money off of it, but I gotta that takes time. Um, and I would really have to make a hard decision about what to do with my career because I can't sustain this if I go back to like a one of those jobs where I'm not seeing the daylight. Um, I don't really have an answer for that. Like, I would love for this to take off, not for me. Like, I want this to take off culturally
Mhm.
in an untangible way. Some of these girls that like started following me 6 months ago and, have been there since the beginning. And like, I'm looking at their Instagrams or I'll look at what they're posting in their stories and I'll look at what they're doing now and like saying like, oh, I'm mentoring more and stuff like that. Like, there is no price on that. And that's really cool. Like they're just their confidence or like their perspectives or what they text me and they're like, hey, this happened today. And it's like, that's, I don't know where to take that. I don't know how to take it bigger, other than the spread of culture change.
One
Doing
of,
podcasts like this.
You should have your own show at some point because I'm
yeah,
sure tons of people would love to listen.
yeah, for sure. And one other thing, Tyree asked the question, what would you tell somebody coming into the military, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, brand new to the whole world? But what about the the young teenage uh girl or boy dealing with the struggles there? And you said you were bullied in
Yeah.
school, and you know kind of in relation to what I'd mentioned to you the other day. Because in regards to that thing, like I'm at a loss. I don't know how to navigate that world. Um and I know people listening and watching or whatever, they're like, what the fuck's he talking about? It's none of your business. But like in regards to that, um the challenges that come along with somebody in that position, the how do you establish resiliency in that person? What do you say to that person? How do you tell that person, look, man, there's bigger shit out there. This is not what it is. It's not the end of the world. It's am I making sense? Because I right now, like,
Yeah.
yeah, my words are not working. Because it's pretty, like I said, it's a pretty sensitive thing for me, and I don't know how to like really say the words that I'm trying to say.
I think it's more
I
or less what you're saying is
yeah.
like what would you tell somebody, or how would you explain that this is not the end of it all? There's so much more on top of the start. There's so much more. Especially, you can stand on top of the mountain and say there's so much more than just raising your right hand and swearing into this shit.
Hmm.
There's you can be a ranger. You can go through some serious mental shit. You're gonna have to deal with this stuff. You're gonna have to go through a whole lot of stuff from people who just don't want to see you succeed for whatever fucking stupid reason. You're still gonna have to deal with that, and you're gonna have to be strong and tough. And if you quit, you're gonna fucking look back on it and be like, "Damn, I could have done X, Y, Z." And I think it's awesome that you will have the ability to tell somebody like, "Hey, this is how it is." Regardless of what you think is the top, this ain't it. It can go a lot higher than that, and I think that's awesome. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but I just thought of that. So there.
Well, I keep
Yeah.
thinking that balance your grit. I mean, you want to empower women in military, you want to empower women in general, but at some point, your following is going to grow. Like no lie, since I just refreshed I have it pulled up because I use it for reference. You just gained like 9 followers in the last like 5 minutes. I swear to God. But
Yeah,
I,
I've got a post going viral right now. It's fucking weird.
well, it's
The viral
badass.
side, yeah, the viral side of it is like I'm extremely grateful when a post goes viral. Um, but it's really weird.
Yeah.
It's not, it's especially like it's not like having like a song or a post or like a piece of art or a product or something going viral. It's like it's my image and that's or my message, and it's a really weird space to be in. And I have to make sure that I don't slip in my mind when that happens. Um, it's a very weird space. I'd rather have like a gradual growth. But like a week and a half ago, I had like 1,000 less followers. So it's like I try again. It's like to focus on like what the purpose is and these followers, the interest will happen. There's a way less amount of hate on my this post that's going viral than the first one. That was like a picture of me and my brother at Ranger School graduation.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that one like so I'm like, okay, maybe that's the gauge that like there's, you know, maybe less hate on there. But for your question, it's like, I've been in that mental space of what like when I was 16, like I was just like, there's no like there's nothing other than like what the fuck. And I don't know, I think, love, like I mean, I had basketball, like and the feeling of love is like bringing it back to the beginning is like it's dangerous. Like if you and having anger, I think having anger is healthy. Again, like if you can mesh that anger and love, um, not a lot of people are going to know what to do with you, but you just got to be patient and find a way to channel that into something productive and into something healthy. And whether that's art, like I don't think we stress art enough to our younger generation. We stress conformity and this bullshit of like, oh, being rebellious and like trending is what's conformity with like being rebellious with your fashion and stuff. Like, no, like I'm not talking about that. It's like actually being independent and creating art or like creating music or painting or like dance or just finding healthy things, whether it's like surfing or just getting back in tune with nature and art, I don't think is stressed enough. Because you can express your love there. Like you can express your anger, you can express your creativity or whatever you're going through. Um, and that kind of goes back to like doing something that makes you feel love, and then finding a way to like balance and channel that with treatment, like things that make you angry or you don't know how to express it and you don't know what to do with it and you're angry at the world and like that is like metamorphosis. Like that is what I kind of made a post about today, where it's like when you're at that point of burnout, when you're at that point of complete confusion and complete loss and just you're at bottom, like that is we should be teaching people like that is where absolute excellence, like metamorphosis, your that's a huge time of change. And if you can be patient and if you can sit in that and you can feel it and you can just let it take over and just keep an open mind to see where that starts taking you, that is like when a new life starts. And I'm sure I'll hit that point again at some point in my life, but I know that okay, when that's happening, it's because I have to change and I have to grow and I have to have a new perspective and I have to find to lead with love and I have to feel love and it'll all work out. And I just kind of I felt like that. I was really fucking depressed like in my teenage years, but I just knew, okay, I just got to get to college. Like I just got to play basketball. I got to get on that good team. I got to play for, like do what I love, play and do what I love. And that's what led me to the army. And then the army led me to the infantry schools and the infantry units. And I hit a bottom there too. And that's what led to balance your grit. And it's like, if you just have a mindset of like, life is fucking hard. It's crazy. There's a lot of things you can't control, but you only get one. I mean,
There it is.
and yeah,
You only get one. So
Yeah.
hey,
and love is cool. So
Yeah.
love is. I'm gonna. Again, this is a long, awesome show, and I hate to be the one that cuts everything off as usual. But I want to
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on to our show. Um, there are going to be people who are going to hear this and it's going to resonate with them and they're going to fucking go out there and fucking run through walls after they hear some you talk about. And I think that's incredible. And hopefully people really understand the message that, you, like you just said, you get one life. So fucking live it. And
yeah,
don't worry about the criticism. Don't worry about all the other bullshit because all you can do is be yourself and be the best
yep.
possible you can. And if you love doing what you do, you'll be the best fucking version of that. So thank you so much for
Thank,
coming on to Before I Forget. Kevin, you got anything?
I just want to know, yeah, like Sydney, you said earlier, life is pretty cool when you're a good person, and fucking amen to that. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show for real. Like it's been amazing talking to you. I hope we get to talk again.
yeah,
Um, Definitely would love to bring you on the show. I'm gonna stay in contact with you anyway.
yeah.
Because anyway, yeah, no, I can't thank you enough. Sidney Jaques, everybody. Like, oh my God, Sidney, do you have anything?
No, thank you. Thank you for having me and thank you for the awesome questions and taking this for a long conversation. I had a lot of fun. So thank you.
Hey, thank you. And thank you for everyone listening. Please like, listen, share, subscribe, and watch and share. And thank you for listening to Before I Forget.